Trying to get him to go. Choose Google Eyes. Google Eyes, whatever it is.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Town of Highland Beach Commission meeting, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. in the Commission chambers. Kindly silence your cell phones. Town Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner David.
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Here.
Commissioner Gossick-Simon isn't here yet. Vice Mayor Bobby.
Present.
Mayor Zelniker.
Here.
Town Attorney Town Attorney Tercivia.
He's here.
Town Manager Lavity.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, we're all going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, and we will, in our moment of silence, think of our troops that are abroad, especially with the coronavirus. Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Commissioners, anybody have any?
Nothing.
Please note that Peggy Gossick-Simon is here. Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to accept the agenda as it is. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Civility pledge, Town Clerk, please read the civility pledge.
We will be respectful of one another even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issue. We will avoid personal attacks. Politeness costs so little, by Abraham Lincoln.
Presentations and proclamations, none. Public comments and requests, non-agenda items only. Public comments are now open on non-agenda items only. All comments are to be directed to the Commission, and please raise your hand to be recognized. Do we have any comments today? Yes, please. Go ahead. Please state your name clearly and your address.
I'm Barbara James.
Put the microphone, please.
Barbara James. I live at Beach Walk at 3201 South Ocean. I am the marine sea turtle permit holder for the town of Highland Beach. It's sea turtle season. We had one come in about a week ago. It's a start. Lights out, please. Any lights reaching the beach. No flash photography if you're on the beach. It's the rule, it's an ordinance. No lights on the beach till November 1st, okay? The day after Halloween. Please don't disturb any nesting sea turtles. It's against the law. They are a federally protected animal, and you just leave them alone, stand back 50 feet, 30 feet, just stay still. A help would be not to feed the raccoons and the foxes, because then they don't need to go after turtle eggs. If you don't feed those animals, they don't procreate and make bigger families for us to worry about. Beach litter comes in from the ocean, comes out of people's picnic baskets, just comes out of their car windows. We all know what's going on, and we can just leave the beach with more than you went there with. That's a good concept, okay? Or do more. Beach furniture is an issue. Sea turtles that are nesting way between, I'm going to say, 200 pounds to could be 1,000 pounds, maybe a little over. They don't have a reverse. So if they bump into a beach furniture, a boat, debris, they can't back up, so they have to figure a way around. Sometimes it's under a chaise. They will get stuck there. They have been killed under there. A whole stack has fallen over on them. So be cautious of the way you leave the beach. If you have furniture that you are leaving on the beach, put the pieces 10 to 15 feet apart so that they can maneuver around. And tell your guests and your neighbors, we are a maternity ward for sea turtles. You do what's right in a maternity ward. So I will be having some stuff that I'll be leaving in the town hall in there where they have things to hand out. So if anybody needs more information, that'll also give my name and how you can reach me. So I guess that's it. Okay?
Any comments, commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any comments? No? Greg? Okay, perhaps our town can send out an email. I think if we have something in writing, perhaps from our turtle person or from Gumbo Limbo, I'd like to see an email go out to all the residents. Not too many residents really come here and pick up literature. So, as well as being on the website, not too many people read that either. So the best way to get it out, in the library, and an email should be shot out. Yeah, that's my opinion, if that's okay with Marshall. Okay, very good. Then you could help Marshall put that together. Thank you very much. There are a lot of new residents. They're not familiar with our sea turtles, so we've got to do this every year. I know it's been a long time we're doing this, but you're getting there. You're finally getting it. Yeah, I mean out, the word. It's good. Thank you very much. Announcements. Anyone else before we go? Yes, John?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, John Shoemaker, Highland Beach Club. I thought I would just report back on something that I had complained about earlier, and now that I'm educated, I want to set the record straight, as well as for the videotape that those who might be listening in the future can see. I had the opportunity, along with Doug Hillman, to visit the water plant. Robert Ailstock, David Richards, Pat Roman were very gracious. They took us through in detail from the skater all the way through the scrubbers to the distribution of how this water plant works. So I would describe, for those who don't or haven't had the chance to see the water plant up front, inside, all around, from the wells through cartridge filters, membranes, degasifiers, odor controls, storage, and distribution, controlled by Alan Bradley, the skater, the supervisory control system. It's an impressive operation, I have to say. My first comparison analogy was to an aircraft carrier that takes the water in, desalinizes and cleans it and so forth, and that's the water they use. We, in fact, take water from 1,200 to 1,300 feet down, I believe, and it's brackish water, and so it has to go through, obviously, the filters to take out the particles and so forth, but it's also taking out the salt. And so it does go through a rigorous process. It is controlled. There are controls in place, testing and so forth, sampling, to ensure that we're getting good quality water. For me, one of my issues was that the taste was still a problem at the condominium. And now I think, since I had a chance, after we went through the entire tour, it was suggested, okay, over there at the spigot, let's take a taste test. And I did, and it was excellent. So the point there is, reinforce what I thought might be the problem, but wasn't sure, that the distribution through the main water lines is one thing. It's the feeder lines that go into these condominiums and private residences, horizontal tubes where that can collect particles over time. I don't know how many condos actually clean out these horizontal pipes. It is an issue, I think, that we have to think about and address, at least as we look at how we communicate and collaborate with the condominium community, as well as private residences. as well as the point that this time of year is the best time to get the, the best tasting water because there's a lot of use. And so the water's flowing through the pipes and so forth. However, in the summertime, it becomes more stagnant in the pipes. And that creates more of a challenge on the tasting. So I wanted to just get back and say that from a facility, it is an impressive operation run by, I think, competent personnel. And I give that as very much a shout out to not only the tour, but I could understand what you were all doing. So, Bob, I thank you for that. And I know that recently, John Ross's committee has sent out another summary of some of the issues that we have to deal with, challenges as a town. And I think the water plant is among them. And that's more about billing, finances, how we charge, how we recover our costs, and all of that, instead of the actual operation itself, which now I am really convinced that we got a state-of-the-art facility that we need to protect, because the objective in the very beginning, going back years, and kudos to whoever, the mayor at the time, and one of the commissioners that designed this and drove it to completion from nothing. I think it gives the town independence and not having to rely on other towns to deliver water to us that we can control was the objective that I still think is a good one. Okay, I did that in my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate that. One comment that you made, yes, in Regency Highland, when I was president there, we had changed all the water pipes. And if you see what we saw when we took those pipes out, rust and grease and this and that, sediment, the building is from 1970s. So, yeah, it behooves the individual condominiums.
But how are we telling them what their vulnerability is in the quality of water that they take? Because I know at Highland Beach Club, we had no clue.
Well, that's a condominium issue. People don't want to spend money for pipes because unfortunately, people want to see something when they spend money. We had to do the sewer system underneath my building. Sometimes you have to put money into where you live. That's an individual condo association issue.
Yeah, I just think that they don't know enough yet, because there's also change in boards in many of these condos.
That's right.
And so the new guys, they don't realize
Well,
what the issues
maybe
are below ground.
Right. So maybe the next commission could start your own condominium letters going out, helping the condominiums go forth and look into these things. All they do is they need an engineer to come in and check those pipes. So he's laughing because, he doesn't want to replace all his pipes. I don't want to get involved in that. Okay, anyway, in my building, I have all new pipes. Yes. It was a big job, too.
Anything else?
Anybody else have any comments on a way to do it? Because, maybe Barry?
I would just add to that, for those of us who have had a chance to tour that plant, in addition to the facilities, and you certainly touched on it, when you talk to the people that work there, the pride you hear in their voice and see in their faces when they take you around and show you what they do, and the end product is wonderful to see. They're a great group of guys, and we're lucky to have them.
Very good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Burnich, and I live at 4505 South Ocean Boulevard. I want to compliment the fire department, the police department, and waste management, because yesterday we had almost a terrible disaster when the trash that was being picked up by waste management caught fire in the back.
Wow.
They called their supervisor, and the supervisor told them to dump it because that truck is powered by liquid natural gas, and we could have had a major bomb go off. The fire department was there quickly because it was happening right across the street from our guard facility, and the police department was there. I know it caused a lot of traffic problems for a couple of hours, And by the time I came back at 5:30, it was all cleaned up, so you couldn't even tell anything happened. But I think everybody should be complimented that dealt with this potential disaster. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I heard about that because a lot of people called me. Whenever the traffic does get backed up, and it has been backed up a few times, and over the past month, and I get the calls like, what's happening, what's wrong, I'm in the car, they're calling me from the cars. And it might be helpful if we did throw out a quick email explaining why. And then people have a better understanding and they don't get angry and they don't start calling the mayor and screaming. So this has been, if we can get out the message to people, I think they understand. Then they know what's happening. Because we had a situation in front of Boca Highland, there was something, and we had the bridge situation. And that was another disaster. They were turning the cars around. You couldn't get out at Linton, and you couldn't get out at Spanish River. I don't know if anybody here was involved in that. But many people were calling, and I think we need a little bit better communication with the public when these things happen, because it's been happening, unfortunately, too often. Also, maybe there's just too much traffic on A1A. That's what I'm hearing from people. Then I just received an email, we all got it, they're going to be doing more bridge work until 2021. But what is that? I don't know, but we'll discuss that under the manager's report. I thought this painting was it. No, okay. All right, so anybody else before we continue? Yes, John. I thought you'd be home watching the primaries.
What time is it? John Ross, Casarina. So if you want to send out something by town email, it's completely ineffective. It's completely ineffective for a reason, because your list stinks. And your list stinks for a reason. And that reason is that if I went to the front desk and said, I am from the American Hacking and Identity Theft Company, and I need a list of everyone you've got, can you please give it to me? I intend to use it to steal their identities and all their money. You would give it to me. So I'm suggesting that the town do a little civil disobedience and say, well, we'll keep two lists. One list will be the public list. The other we're only going to use for emergencies.
Well, we have code.
And we will not give that to third parties. Now, when you do this, you're breaking state law. Yes. On the other hand, okay, they care more about building their political mailing lists than they do about protecting the citizens. And you would, at the very least, by taking steps in this direction and then maybe backing off before the chief has to arrest you, maybe you'll stir up enough that people in Tallahassee might notice this and say there should be an exception for emergency contact with folks. Phone numbers and phone lists aren't good, and those are public too. And everybody in town knows how many spam phone calls they get, right? When do you get 5 real phone calls in a week and 50 spams? Same thing. Have a public list for various things like sending out your bulletins and other stuff, and have a private list only to be used in serious emergencies by the town to alert people, and promise to protect the identity of people on that second list. It would be good for the town, good for you, and it might increase awareness among the legislature. Thanks.
Thank you for that comment. That's been an issue of people saying they didn't know. Even yesterday with the garbage truck and the fire, that caused a lot, and they were turning the cars around, and you had to go back out Spanish. It was a big mess. But I think if people had a code red, and I have to ask the Chief Hartman, can we use Code Red when there's something like that so that people know what's going on? Because that comes in over your phone, I thought.
Yes, of course we can. We save Code Red for emergencies. People don't want to be inundated with these things as they start to ignore them. And a lot of this traffic that's out on A1A is coming from out of town also. So it's great if you happen to be stuck in it. You're going to be stuck in it either way, whether you know what it is or not.
Yeah,
So
but at least
we try not to inundate you if we don't have to and save them for true emergencies. Normally, it's nothing here. It's something outside of our town, the bridge, or like we experienced last week. This was an anomaly with the fire right on.
Okay, but I have another question. There was an officer turning people around, but it was further in. It wasn't at Boca Highland. And just a question, because I'm being asked these questions. If somebody would have contacted, I asked the officer, and the officer said, I think he was by Belito, I'm not sure where he was. And then when you got there, you waited 25 minutes, and then you got there, then he turned you around. So I said, well, how come you don't just, stand by Spanish River and, let people not to go down to make that left turn? And he said that, well, that's Boca. But do we have a relationship with the Boca police, maybe, that, we could have called them and said, please send an officer and tell people to go back on Spanish?
We do. It just depends on the situation. And yesterday, there were people still trying to get as close as they can. We weren't stopping them in Spanish River if they were coming to Boca Highlands or other places that they could get to. So we tried to get them as close to where they lived before we had to turn them around, if we had to turn them around.
Yeah, but there was no officer at Boca Highland telling people to turn there. But whatever. Okay, I'm just telling you some of the calls I have. Okay, anyway, let's continue. Anybody else? Any commissioners have any comments? No. Okay. Board vacancies, Board of Adjustment and Appeals Board, 3 vacancies for a 3-year term. Meetings and events. Spring Fling Community Event, March 21st, 2020, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Town Commission Special Meeting, our swearing in, which I'm so happy for, March 24th, 2020, 1:30 p.m. Board Action Report, we have one from the Planning Board. Is anyone here from the Planning Board? No, okay. We did have it in the packet. It was in the agenda packet. And then we go to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 20-2002, that's 20-002, street parking, second reading. An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, amending Chapter 16, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1, in general by modifying the current regulations and removing outdated provisions and to allow for on-street parking in certain situations, providing for the repeal of laws in conflict, providing for codification and severability, and providing for an effective date. First reading was February 4th, 2020. This is the second reading of this ordinance. I refer this to Town Manager Labadie.
It's in the same format and language, so I'll answer any questions.
Any commissioner comments?
Yes, I think we've discussed this enough, so unless anything has changed, we should just vote on it.
Thank you. Commissioner Donaldson?
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
If we wait 6 weeks, it'll be 2 years since I brought this up, but instead, let's move on. Thank you.
All good things are worth waiting for. Vice Mayor Bobby?
Just one question. On section 16.6, which is page 3, under B, this is the section called permit.
Yeah, so if you, regarding the recreational vehicle, it used to be 24-hour. Based on our conversation, the commission felt comfortable with giving it 48 hours. So they just have to come in and they get that extra access.
Can we just put the words 48 hours as well? Because we have the words 24, then 24 is striked out, and then we have the number 48, so it's a little confusing.
Sure.
Okay.
That's it.
And yes, we have discussed this. I'm glad you caught that, and thank you. And we will continue. At this time, are there any public comments about this topic? We've all discussed it quite often here. Okay, no comments. The public comments are now closed. Any further discussion from the commissioners? No? Okay, I need a motion, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance with the corrections on the second and final reading?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 20-002 as corrected.
I second. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossick-Simon?
Yes.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
And Mayor Zellniker?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now, for a very special resolution that we had discussed at the last meeting, resolution number 20-005, anti-Semitism and racism. A resolution of the Town Commission of the Highland Beach, Florida, denouncing all acts of anti-Semitism and hateful expressions of intolerance against those targeted for their differences, and calling upon organizations to do the same. At this time, I'm going to ask Commissioner Donaldson to read this so everyone understands what this is.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for reading it.
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, denouncing all acts of anti-Semitism and hateful expressions or of intolerance against those targeted for their differences and calling upon organizations to do the same. Whereas the Town of Highland Beach, Florida is a duly constituted municipality having such power and authority conferred upon it by the Florida Constitution in Chapter 166, Florida statutes, and whereas in recent weeks and months the town has become aware of instances of anti-Semitism throughout the town, and whereas anti-Semitism has been defined as a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism can be directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities, or in other locations where Jews congregate. And whereas in 2018, the Federal Bureau of Investigation found attacks against Jews or Jewish institutions made up nearly 60% of all religious-based hate crimes. And it found that hate crime murders are at their highest level since the FBI began tracking and reporting hate crimes in 1991. And whereas all Americans, including Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and people of all faiths and no faith, have a stake in fighting anti-Semitism, as all Americans have a stake in fighting every form of bigotry and hatred against people based on religion, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, age, or place of birth and origin. And whereas the town of Highland Beach takes pride in its democracy, enriched by people of differing religions, races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, ages, and places of birth and origin. And whereas the town wishes to express that it condemns acts of hate against the Jewish community and all who are targeted for their differences. Now therefore, let it be resolved by the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, that Section 1, the Town of Highland Beach decries and denounces all acts of anti-Semitism and hateful expressions of intolerance, and that it will coordinate with public safety and federal law enforcement agencies to apprehend any individual for which probable cause exists that such individual threatens the safety of the community. Section 2, the Town of Highland Beach calls upon all political, civic, and religious organizations at every level to clearly and forcefully denounce and delegitimize anti-Semitism and other forms of hate against persons because of their differences. Section 3, this resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage.
Thank you for reading that. And at this time, I would refer this item to the town manager.
As directed by the commission, the resolution was put together, well read by Commissioner Donaldson, and it is time to take action.
Okay, and we'll have a quick commission discussion. Commissioner David?
I don't see any need for a discussion. This is self-evident and it needs to be passed.
Okay, Commissioner Donaldson?
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Bassett-Sideman?
Yes, want to pass it and want to add that when I was in Tallahassee 2 weeks ago, which I'll address later in the meeting, our Representative Mike Caruso reported this live on the House floor in conjunction with his anti-Semitism bill, which was passed last year and which has a sort of a new life under a broader scope this year. So we were heard in Tallahassee, and that was great. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Echo all the previous comments.
Yes, and we all know how I feel about this. We all have to say something when we see something. And I'm very proud of our town for doing this. At this time, public comments are now open. If anyone has anything to say about this resolution, please say it now. Okay. There being no further comments, the public comments are now closed. Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution number 20-005?
Motion to adopt resolution 20005.
Is there a second?
My second, co-second.
Okay, Commissioner Donaldson,
Yes.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Sideman,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Bobby,
Yes.
Mayor Zellniker.
Happily, yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Well done.
Okay. Consent agenda, we have none. Unfinished business, we have none. Now I have the pleasure of advisory boards and committee interviews and consideration to nominate 2 members to serve on the Code Enforcement Board. Expired term ending July 1st, 2021, and an unexpired term ending August 1st, 2021. Joel, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Lyonson. Okay. And Brian Perlman. But before we begin, both of these gentlemen have come before us before.
Correct.
And they have both served on our town's boards for many years.
Correct.
I guess between the two of you, and I'm here 6 years, so if you each had 6 years, 12 years between the two people. Commissioners, would you like to interview this gentleman before us, or do you just want to vote? We've interviewed them already.
We've talked. I would just say that, I'm particularly glad that Joel and Brian stepped forward for this. We've been trying to kind of scatter duties around the community. This board has had some trouble with getting their vacancies filled. These are 2 excellent candidates. They've served admirably on the Board of Rules and Appeals. I am glad they are coming back to continue their public service and appreciate your stepping forward.
Well, yes, Peggy.
agreed. I've spoken to both gentlemen in the past. They're very qualified, extremely. They would be great on any board, but this board definitely needs buttress. So thank you very much for coming forward, and to Brian.
Vice Mayor?
Echo the same. We interviewed both already, and they're both highly qualified. So thank you for applying for this board.
They're both very good people. I've known them each 6 years, and I can't recommend them anymore. And you're happy. Tim is happy because they're going to be on your board. Yay! So we made Tim very happy. Good. At this time, I would like, and now when we've, any questions from the audience before we continue? Okay. There are 2 vacancies. You can sit down if you wish. Thank you. There are 2 vacancies on this board, and we need separate motions for each appointment. So if please, commissioners, do one at a time. So Joel is here, so please make a motion for Joel first. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Joel Lyonson to the board, the Code Enforcement Board.
There are 2 terms, is what she's saying. One term expires July 1st, 2021, and the other unexpired term is August 1st, 2021. So for the record, just please state which one you're appointing each of them to.
Well, we'll appoint Joel, Mr. Lionson, to the term expiring August 2021. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the next motion,
We need the next motion.
I move that we appoint Brian Perelman to the Board of Code Enforcement for a term ending July 1st, 2021.
I second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Okay, we're moving on. Approve the bid award and authorize the mayor to execute the contract for services with Control Systems Design, Inc. for the water treatment plant, SCADA system and instrumentation, RFP number 20-004. I refer this item to Town Manager Labadie.
Thank you, Mayor. So we bid out the services for programming and control on the SCADA system. This is our bidder that responded. We vetted, the Public Works team vetted it with adjacent Community and Public Works Department, as you see in your write-up. So we're asking for approval to issue a professional services agreement or a contract, service contract with them. Your approval will be followed by Glenn's office putting the finishing touches on a contract, which then will be executed by the mayor.
Okay. Commissioners, Commissioner David, any comments?
This was the only firm that responded,
Correct?
and we need to have this done.
Yes.
Then we should approve this. Thank you.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yeah, we were aware this was kind of a, specialty product going into it, and we would likely not have very many bidders. I would ask the town manager, though, in going through the evaluation, did we gain a sense that this appeared to be appropriate based on other experiences or other factors that led us to believe we're okay and there's no need to rebid this or anything?
Correct. So there's basically two, from what the team was telling me, there's basically two players in the game that do this. This is one of the companies. The other one chose not to bid, but we're directly given this information. So not only do we put it out on Demand Star and advertise it in the paper, we also send direct out to those that we know that do this type of work and say, here you go. Baxter Woodman reached out, who is the engineer on these for the water plant, sent stuff out to assist. This is the firm that came back. Delray and Jupiter used it. I mean, we could have bypassed the whole process and did a co-op, came up with the same price. So we spent a lot of money to get what we could have done cooperatively, but we'd hoped, maybe that the RFP process would solicit more competition. But nonetheless, we got a company that's well-respected, do this work, have done work in our plant before. So I'm comfortable moving forward. And again, they do work in adjacent communities. They know our system, and they followed the process.
All right, thank you.
Peggy Gossett-Seidman, Commissioner?
Yes, pertaining to what Mr. Labadie just said, exactly how much did the RFP cost us, or just ballpark figure?
Several $1,000s.
$2,000, $3,000? Just
Yeah,
curious.
something like that. Mm-hmm.
And are there not that many companies who perform this service? Is that
Not
why?
really, not really.
Like how many in the state? 2 guys?
Oh, in the state, there's probably a handful. There's 2 that do this area predominantly. They handle these water systems and controls. It's kind of the nature of the beast. When we get to talking about crosswalks later in the meeting, some of these specialty subcontractors and contractors, there's not a lot of them in the marketplace because it requires such a specialized expertise, not only in the SCADA system, the Allen Bradley equipment, but also, it's a lot of computer programming too. So there's a lot of back-end stuff that they have to know how to do in SCADA and things. So there's not a lot of folks that do this.
Okay, thank you. Also, there's a reference under evaluation and award. It states that we may assemble an evaluation committee. I presume we didn't do that?
Usually we'll assemble, I'm sorry to cut you off. What we do for the selection committee is if price isn't the driving sole factor. So when we get to professional services, think of, engineering, architects, our IT system, where there's more than just price that goes into considering the award and the evaluation. And here, and then similarly to like a crosswalks project where you have like a bid form with 1,000 items, if they're qualified, we qualify them by the engineer asking questions, and then it's basically price. They can do the work, it's driven by price. When it's a little bit more of a professional service or a unique type of advertisement, or whether we go invitation or bid, request for proposal, kind of bounces around, kind of synonymous. We'll put a selection committee together then. But we do have a selection committee for the not crosswalks, but for the IT system. Because it's not just price, because each one has such unique elements to it, what works best for our community and operation.
I understand. Thank you. One more question, as I read through this whole contract. Regarding the Article 17 modifications of work, I just wondered what could be a scope of a modification and what potentially could be a cost increase, and is there any kind of do we have a cap or any kind of a stopgap on this contract? I didn't locate it.
So this contract will be, as you see in the bid form, I think it's an hourly basis based on the type of work that's done, and it's work that's been budgeted. So the commission controls the price based on budgeted work. If there's an emergency, that would be a immediate response type of situation that's maybe an unprogrammed operation, but mostly through the budgeting process on this, because this will be a multi-year contract. Typically, Glenn's office likes a 2-year with a 1-year extension if they hold prices, and it's agreeable by both parties. So then you're looking at a 3-year contract here before we'll go back out. Just forecasting in the future, we're going to start doing this for electrical, plumbing. It's really important to Pat to get a stable of service providers to make sure he has qualified folks to move at any point in time.
Okay, so we don't really know if there's any kind of an extreme event in terms of price increase?
If there's a price,
If there's a
price increase, there's provisions in the contract where we would have to come back to the commission to agree to those changes if there are. Usually on contracts like this, you don't have those changes. And since it's not a fixed scope and price project where you might have a change order where you've added work, most of the work that we use through the programming is through the new installation of all the equipment, and in the future it is as needed. If something breaks down, a certain component is malfunctioning, the computer needs reprogramming or an update, this firm comes in and handles that as needed after our initial install project, which you see is currently budgeted at $30,000 this year to put all that equipment that you purchased earlier in the year.
Okay, thank you. One last question. How often is this done? 2 to 3?
Every 3 years.
3 years, okay.
2 to 3, depends if there's a change. The company could go under, then we have to go back out again. Or if there's again, like you said, if they want to change their hourly rate or something changes where there's a situation or extraordinary event that changes their pricing, I got to come back to you guys to change that.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Marsh. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
All my questions are covered, no questions.
Okay, and I agree. It's something we need, it's something we have to have, and at this point, I will open this up to public comments. Anybody have any comments on this contract? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue. At seeing none, is there a motion to approve the bid award, authorize the town manager and the town attorney to prepare the contract for services with Control System Design, Inc., and authorize the mayor to execute the contract?
I'll make the motion as you just read.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, my favorite topic, crosswalk enhancement project update. And when this does happen, and I won't be here, I would like to be invited when this really lights up, if it does in my lifetime. Crosswalk enhancement project. I refer this item to my favorite town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I remember as far back as the interviewing for this position, crosswalks, Mr. Labadie. Okay. I bid the crosswalk project. We've designed the crosswalk project. We've wrangled a permit out of FDOT, both types of permits you need to get, have signed all of those agreements. Now we've come to the situation where the current pricing and marketplace has kind of caught us by surprise. Our engineer's estimate for the project was right around $450,000. Those were based on FDOT pricing averages. So we were a little surprised when the prices came in. So basically you see we have two bidders. They do a lot of the work. They do all Deerfield work. They do Delray's work. I believe I was speaking to the planner up in Palm Beach Gardens. They're doing their work. So these bidders are doing the pedestrian facility type work throughout the county. These are the two main companies, both very qualified, both come highly recommended. They do the work. Now you'll see that there's two pricing. So heavy civil, as you see in there, is the apparent low bidder. Now the situation we have with that is that there's two ways we did it. We did a base bid, which was everything except for the embedded lights. We asked that for a bid alternative because even at the beginning, we anticipated that might be problematic to our pricing. So we kept that separate. So heavy civil came in basically at $532,000 and then $240 for their bid alt, which would take them basically to $772. Our authority to do the project is $350,000. So what do we do now? So I put a couple basic contingencies on there. There could be some other tweaks we look at. I've spoken to a few engineers in some areas to say, why? Why is this such a drive? And basically both firms have indicated that specialty subcontractors are controlling the pricing, and one alluded to time of year. So maybe we mistime this in some fashion based on either the amount of work that they're currently doing. Nonetheless, we got these prices and they said the specialty stuff is starting to become more expensive. Again, back to what we just did with our controls contract. There's only a couple subs in play. They control the pricing when these general contractors are saying, give me a price for X, Y, and Z. Again, when you dig deep into their bids, certain line items are way off between the two. So I can't say that there's any trend outside of that it's costing more overall to build this type of project. So our options are, there's a possibility if the state funding comes in, we could scale the project down and we can complete a base project minus what is called in here pattern pavement, but basically that is the red asphalt coloring that would go into the crosswalk to yet improve a higher level of visibility. So if we take out that and don't do the embedded lights, so the red comes out and the embedded lights come out, and we are blessed enough to get some of those state funds, we could do a base project, and hopefully we'll have those decisions within the 120-day price guarantee that the contractors have given us. Now, if that doesn't happen, or we truly feel that at this point, let's do the entire project, we come to a referendum. Do we want to put this before the voters? We can put it on, I've talked with Linelda, we could put it on the presidential ballot in November and have the voters vote on it. So the good with that timing, if you make that choice, is that if we do get the state funding, but you still want to do the full project, we're not going to lose the state funding because we can execute a contract within the state funding cycle. So we wouldn't lose those state dollars. I had indicated there was a legal question. Glenn was comfortable enough that if we get something earmarked specifically for a very specific project from the state, it doesn't count against our charter cap. So that would allow us to do a base project if those state dollars come in within the 120 days. So basically you got to look at, do we want, we wait for the state funds. If we don't get them, we're at a referendum. There's just no other way to do this. If the state funds come in, we come back to it and it's within the 120 days, we can move forward with the base project. And if we're outside of the 120 days, then we got to throw it out and rebid the process. If we were to rebid the process, I've had some conversations with folks to look at the different mechanisms by which to deliver it. We go to a CM at risk, contract manager at risk, kind of model where we're not doing a design, bid, build, which is the common practice that we would follow. We would hire a contract manager. We would agree to a price with them to deliver the project. They go chase the subs and get the best pricing and can help us with timings and manage it as an owner's rep and kind of exercise the project that way. Usually I would say for a smaller project like this, you shouldn't have to use that delivery mechanism, but prices continue to be growing. So it may warrant exploring that if we have to go back out again, do we look at an alternate method to secure pricing? So I wanted to give you an update because I know this has been a very important project. Again, we've got everything to move forward. We have all of the approvals from FDOT. We have all the agreements in place. We have contractors that are qualified and vetted and ready to go. I just need money. I could ask you to give me $350,000, but that isn't enough. So I think at this point, there's no action today. You can't award because you don't have the money to cover the award. But we have 120 days. That takes us to early June, late May. So we have a month or two to see how the state dollars shake out, give you some opportunity to those here, to newer commissioners and mayor to think, how do we want to move forward? And do we just, at this point, since if this is the reality of the prices, even if you bring that down 10, 20%, it's still beyond our charter, do we go to the voters and let them tell us if we should do the whole thing? So I just wanted to give you an update, some of the options that are currently on the plate. I remain optimistic with the state getting some funding. It sounds promising. We just have to wait, see how it all shakes out. But we won't know that for a few months here or a month. So right now, there's nothing you can do, but just, but you could, if we want to have a discussion on that or hold a place. But, it looks likely that a referendum, if we want to build the full project, we'd have to consider that. We have an opportunity on that presidential ballot. The timing would be okay. This has been a very welcomed project in the community. I think we got a fighting chance to get this through. We have all the products and ability to communicate this clearly. We have all of the authorizations. And the last part that I think is really critical for everyone in the audience and the commissioners to understand is that we're building this project without ad valorem tax dollars. This is all discretionary sales tax dollars that we get from the penny tax. So we're not taking from the reserves per se, I'll clarify that in a minute, but basically it's discretionary sales tax to cover it. So it allows us to build capital projects. We get about $270 a year. We've got about $280 already earmarked. We'll get another chunk of money. So we have the ability to cover the project, even the expanded project, with discretionary sales tax. And when I said, let me clarify some point, you could borrow against future years' contributions by borrowing to the reserves. So we basically would be committing discretionary sales tax to build it. So it's not tax dollars as you would think as your ad valorem tax dollars. This is coming out of discretionary sales tax that's given to us to spend on capital projects just like this. So with that, I can answer any questions. And again, I do look forward to completing this project. It's just how we get there has changed a little bit.
Okay, I would like a commission discussion on this. Vice Mayor Bobby, please.
Oh, boy, start with me. All right. 3 questions.
You're the money man.
3 questions. When do we have to commit if we want to do a referendum? Do we have a deadline?
I believe I saw something for the county's presentation on their bond referendums that I will get to our next meeting. I believe September 1st is the deadline to have the language submitted, so we have to move back from there. So we're talking June, July is our time to say, approve this language, and I'd have Glenn draft that up. It's relatively straightforward. Again, it's not debt we're taking on, it's just allowing us to spend more than $350,000 of discretionary sales tax to build the project.
So that's a free option, if you will. It doesn't cost us anything to decide on that later. So we can...
Correct. You could take a chance at it, and if it fails, then we do something different.
No, I'm saying is we don't have to decide right now to send it to referendum or not.
Oh, no,
I just wanted to... That's my point. We have a little bit of time. Great.
It tends that referendums touch a nerve with some, so I thought maybe earlier in the conversation we can get this, the better.
Okay, that was question 1. Question 2, is there a hard deadline from the state on when we hear about the funding or no?
I could let Peggy speak to that, but basically the governor's got to sign the budget. Has to execute it, and our little piece is in there.
Generally about 30 days after the session is over, because he's got a chance to veto. That's an
Correct.
approximate day.
Session is over in 2 weeks. We are in a very good place. Nothing's done until, it ain't over till it's over. I'll say it that way this time. A little Yogi Berra. We are expecting the money. We hope to have the money, but anything can happen. I have spoken to people who had even smaller requests in, and at the last minute for political or other unknown reasons, it disappears out of the governor's budget. We don't know because it's not a done deal till he signs, but we should know 2 weeks from now if it's in the firm budget, and we should know when he signs the orders after that, within a month. We just hope for the best.
Got it. And then question 3, I wasn't able to easily ascertain what is the cost of the base project through this?
So, so the base, and the cover sheet of your memo, if you look in the table, so we have base bid.
But that's base bid, isn't that including the pavement, though?
The
And-
colored pavement, it does include the colored
Right, but
pavement.
you'd referred in your conversation about a base project of no
I'm
no
sorry. I
red
used-
paint and then no embedded lights as the base
I
project?
think I said a modified project in my write-up. I just used the same terminology in describing base, but we'd have to modify the base for which the apparent low bidder is willing to do. They're willing to hold their prices and remove that piece.
What would be the price of that project of no red paint?
I think it's like, it'd be about $475 with soft costs. And that would give us, thank you for letting me finish the backside of that memorandum, but it's $475. That would give us about 75 grand up to that 550, which is our charter cap of 350, plus the roughly 200 of state would be 550. So we do the modified version and then have about 75,000 left to cover cost overruns, or if we wish to try to leverage those dollars with condo money to do the embedded lights. But I still think the embedded lights might be a challenge for some condos because again, it's, it's expensive, 24,000 or 28,000 per or something like that. Sorry, get the price. 30,000 a piece. So even if you bought it down a couple grand, I still think it's a kind of a monumental cost sharing arrangement. But that would be the modified version.
Got it. No further questions. Thanks.
Commissioner David?
Yes, I would like to know what is the difference between what we currently have, and doing this project without the embedded lights and without the red pavement?
How much would it cost?
No, what's the difference? What would we see different?
Okay, so basically what I would say is your modified version, what we could afford with, coupled with the state dollars, would basically be the solar-powered pedestrian activated signals with the beacon signals underneath, and then restriping across A1A. And as part of what is required, and I clarified this with other communities, that you have to mill out 50 feet on each side of the center line of that crosswalk before you repave, and it allows us to do, the American with Disabilities require certain landings at the actuators, so you have to redo that piece too. So you have some concrete work, truncated domes have to be installed, so all that would be part of it. So you would basically, no embedded lights, no red paint.
Okay. What would be destroyed when FDOT comes through and redoes our road?
So if you put it all in, FDOT comes with the 3R project. We could remove, if you had the embedded lights, we could remove them from the canisters, the embedded canisters, so you can pull the lights out. All the signs, the solar equipment are all fine. So you lose the striping and paint, and you would lose your canisters. So you'd probably lose about 10, 15%, 20% of the project cost. But they would be, they have to repaint the white anyway, so we don't have to pay for that. It would be as if we'd have to repay again for the red paint if we kept it, and then the new canisters.
Okay, and is there another town that is larger? Because I know part of the pricing has to do that this is a relatively small project, and the smaller the project, the more each thing costs. Is there another town that is doing this that we could potentially pair with and bring the price down?
Yes, but it's hard to say that they're exactly the same because some, like Deerfield isn't doing just the A1A crossing. They're more in their street grid system, so they're doing curb cuts and things of that nature. But we could pull out potentially bid items that match. And I kind of did that for an analysis. How much more expensive are we paying than adjacent communities? And some line items we're paying 60% more. So that's striking to me as to why for a certain item we're paying so much more than an adjacent community. There's basically volume and continued volume over time that you have to think about. So when these bidders bid on it, they know that every year there's a program behind it so they can get their profit over time versus on a year-to-base. We're kind of a one-off project, if you will. We could do what the cooperative purchasing and piggyback, but there might be some legal entanglement since we went through an invitation to bid to throw it out, to go to another adjacent community and grab their pricings. It might have some legal entanglements, but I am going through that process now because I talked to a few other managers in the area, have indicated that does seem kind of odd, and they're going to give me some information. So we're still digging as we wait.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Greg, Peggy, Evelyn, good luck. Obviously, this is a football that the mayor and I are passing off to the new team. But this is extremely important, all kidding aside. We got into this because this is an important public safety issue, especially in our town. We have a little older population here, and we tried to tailor this project to be responsive to that. It's just not, a light and people walk across. We know because of the nature of our citizens, we need a little bit more. I really would urge you not to go into this halfway, that we should stick to the goals that we wanted to achieve and get this done right the first time. So I really do encourage us to act in that spirit and see what we can do. The managers brought up a number of points that make a lot of sense. I would add a couple of items to that. Number one, I think we need to tighten up the bid documents. Example, we have traffic control, maintenance of traffic. We have an amount from one bidder in the amount of $56,000 to undertake that work. The other bidder has $9,627. When I see spreads like that, that tells me there's something not right in the bid documents. We either did not properly craft that part of the specification, we failed to communicate it properly. I think we're going to have to go back and do another evaluation on those documents and consider tightening those up, even if it means rebidding them. The second thing that I would urge is that getting into this, there are so many unknowns. I would hate to cut this thing so tight that we end up 90% of the way through the work. We've exhausted our money. We've spent what we put aside on the contingencies, and we have to stop. And we have no recourse because we've hit our cap. That just seems a dangerous way for me to proceed on a job like this of such importance. So I would urge the commission to give very, very serious thought to going through the steps again, taking a look at this critically, but let's get the program right, let's get the money right, and let's definitely consider a referendum that's going to make sure we're comfortable on this and get this done for the community. Thank you.
Commissioner Seidman?
Yes, thank you. It drives me nuts that we have to pay for A1A because it's a state road, and I've said this from the beginning. But since they will not step up to the plate, we have to do something. And so I think we need to stay on this and hope for the best from the state and try to get an idea of what the public is willing to spend or not spend if we do go to referendum. I did the math, and it comes to about exactly $59,375 per crosswalk. And if you break it down and you see one crosswalk in front of one building to another building, that's a lot of money. When you're talking about 8 of them, it's a lot of money. I do agree with Commissioner Donaldson that some of the bid numbers are very divergent, and I don't understand item between the two companies. I love that name, Heavy Civil. It's a funny name. The one on line 6, what do we let me hear?
Pattern pavement, milling,
Yes.
asphalt, yeah. It's
All
over
of
the
these, the
place.
rapid flashing from Heavy Civil is $139,200, and from MBR, $226,440. I mean, that's very divergent. That's more than double. So let's tighten up the process, see what we can do. And perhaps look into other ways of pressing FDOT. Just think that we are just going round and round with them in a boxing ring and we're not getting anything done. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Well, I'm the historian of the group. 3 years ago, a lot of you weren't even coming to meetings at that time. No, but Don was, he'll remember. And Tim was, yeah. We have two people that will remember the conversation. There was a referendum for the first beautification of the sidewalk, and I remember Don and Tim. There was a massive group of people here, larger than I've ever seen with the crosswalk situation. It was Carl Feldman and Bill Weitz who said, we're going to break it off, this project, from the crosswalk glamorization. Okay? We put $250,000, which I still to this day don't know what happened to it, from that project we were supposed to put it into a fund for the crosswalks. And then we were going to use the penny. Oh, John, you remember? I don't think you were there that time, but okay. Good, I'm glad a few people, I'm not crazy. Yeah, I remember this. We had a big group of people here, the likes of which I've never, ever seen. I've seen a lot of people here, but never like that. The whole concept was we just wanted flashing lights at night, so when people are crossing and they're wearing black shirts or black jacket, when they're going across with their girlfriend or boyfriend, they want to spend a romantic night at the beach, they won't get run over. Right, Tom? That's what happened. So that's all we really wanted, was just a safety factor. And supposedly, does anybody know? Greg, do you know whatever happened to that $250,000?
I think it's still sitting in the account. We just earmarked it for it.
Yeah,
I don't think
you
it's gone
earmarked it.
anywhere. It's still right there in the account.
So, but wait a minute, that was the penny surtax. This was a different...
Doesn't matter. We have the money to do it. We just can't, we can only spend $350 no matter where you...
No, I understand,
Okay.
but we had put this aside. All we wanted were bright flashing lights in the nighttime so that people would not get run over. Tim, you remember? That's all we wanted. John Bowden was here, and it's no one's fault because none of these people were even here. John Bowden came in and he had a little sign. Does anyone remember that? Yeah. He came into the town hall. He had a sign. It was very cheap, the sign. And it flashed at night. All you do is press a button. That's really, it wasn't meant to be the Cadillac that it's turned into. The other issue is FDOT's going to come in, and I know that has a lot of people upset, and after all the traffic jams we've had recently, they are. And they're construction people. And I'm concerned to put all that money in before they come. You know, we all know how construction goes. And then they're going to rip things up, and it's never going to be right, and we spent money on this. I would rather do something very simple. By the way, a lot of people in town love the orange flags. So during the day, we have orange flags, and I see a lot, even John's community, your people like the orange flags, right? They love the orange flags. Helps them cross the street. The problem we have is nighttime. And that's a severe problem. We've just really been lucky. But it's going to happen. Somebody's going to get hit. And I know a lot of near misses also. During the day when the lights flash, I think the orange flags are very effective. But all we need is something very simple, maybe for $100,000, or I would even go at this point. I know my condominium would even put something in themselves. I mean, Boca Highland put something in themselves at one time. You were the only ones that had the light, correct? We didn't do it. Oh, you didn't do it? Who did it? I thought you paid for it. Okay, you didn't. I didn't know that. Greg, yeah.
Sorry. No, we didn't pay for it. there were several people who wanted to get a stoplight over there, and then there were other people who were against the stoplight, and rather than do a stoplight, FDOT put flashing lights.
They put it in.
And then it turned out they put the wrong ones in, so they changed it and put a different one in.
Okay. My
But
suggestion.
they did
yeah.
it.
Okay, I didn't know that. See, now there's been rumors through the years that Boca Highland put it in themselves.
No.
I would even think that some condominiums, for safety's sake, if you got figures for us in the interim, to wait until you want to do the bigger, better job.
Well, the trick you're going to have with all of this, we could change the scope of the project. FDOT's just not going to let you throw flashing lights up. They're going to make you do some of these other improvements to get into the right of way. That's what they're going to have to, you can't just restripe over the existing asphalt. You got to mill it out. So there are certain,
How about if it's on condo property?
what good are you going to, then you're outside of the, you can't have attractive nuisances adjacent to the right of way either, or FDOT will make you move those out because these are pseudo traffic control devices or traffic awareness devices. However you want to do it out of the manual control devices that the FHA goes by, Federal Highway Administration. So,
There's got to be something simple.
well, if that's what you want. I mean,
yeah.
you're going to tell me
But
that.
there is one other problem. People don't push the button. So
At
I
night?
have, at night, I have
Really?
seen people
yours, I always see it.
all the time walking across the street 5 feet from the flashing lights, and they just walk across the street, not in the crosswalk, not pushing the lights. So just having the lights there isn't enough. You really need the sidewalk to light up so that when people don't want to be bothered to push it, it lights on its own because it senses them. But just the lights will not
At night,
work.
though, when
At
I'm
night.
driving, wait a minute, when you're driving and you don't see the people crossing, you're almost hitting them.
Absolutely. It's a
And
problem.
there's got to be some way of some lights somehow, somewhere. Yeah. Doug, you want to come up? Yeah, please.
Mayor, if I could add one item that I forgot when I was going down my list is,
That's right.
and I don't know the current status, there was a piece of legislation making its way through that was talking about a rather drastic change to the way these crosswalks are done throughout the state that would require a whole different setup for what amounts to a stoplight. That's another thing that we don't have accommodated in our bid right now. So again, there are all these surprises and things. So again, I would encourage the commission to consider those kinds of unknowns and to plan for them. We don't know when they're going to happen, but we do not want to get short on a project and find we cannot complete it. Thank you.
Okay, Doug.
Hi, Doug Hillman, Dalton Place. I know it's a couple of weeks away, but with your permission,
Absolutely.
can I ask Barry to look over the bid process in detail as you have been doing and review it with Marshall a little more closely before the end of your tour here?
I'd be glad to do it at any time.
Even after your tour?
You
This
know,
seems
obviously,
to
I've been
be-
looking at the numbers. These just scream to me that there's something not well defined.
Yeah, this seems to be within
So-
your wheelhouse, and your assistance, I think, would be beneficial.
I serve at the pleasure of the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I, with your permission.
Of course.
Might I give an assignment out?
Sure, do whatever. It's fine. It's fine. We work together.
Okay.
It doesn't
Marshall?
matter.
For the next meeting, could you put the options together that are in front of us here, but break them down by 8, so we can then look at this on a per crosswalk basis? And look at those options on, as you were describing, here's bare bones. Here it is with all of the, let's call it, first class, everything in it. Here it is with all but the lights in the pavement. Here it is with no lights in the pavement, but with the paint in the pavement. And then possibly the option that I think Barry brought up some time ago, if we do them, but then give the condos that are going to be directly across, the condos that use the crosswalk, the opportunity to pay for those upgrades. Kind of like the way cars used to be sold years ago. So that here's the package option A. You know, you get it bare bones, like Peggy divided it by 8. I think that was the $480,000, the base program. But if you want to upgrade it with A, B, and C, it would cost Boca Highland $20,000, and then you can have B and C. So then we can see what all these different options look like, and possibly it is the base program, but then if the condos want to upgrade it, they can. So then maybe we can have a discussion amongst the commission on this is the way to go. And I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I think if we look at it on a per crosswalk basis, it'll be easier to comprehend it. Okay? Sure.
But in the interim, at nighttime, it's still dangerous. I'm almost thinking it could be as simple as until everything is resolved, and it will get resolved. Everyone loves your flags, I can't tell you. The people waving them like you think it's they really enjoy them. So maybe it's as simple as, like, maybe the town can get some flashlights and a little thing. No, don't laugh. And when you cross, you have a flashlight there. Or people advise people to use the flashlight when they cross the street.
It sounds simple to execute, and
It's not cute, it's sensible.
Cumulative group of projects.
anybody out walking at night should have a flashlight, no question about it.
But they don't.
They're not gonna, and they're just not gonna listen.
Okay.
And this is clearly a life safety issue, very difficult. You can't put a price tag on life safety.
No.
I'm not saying we should spend $1 million on crosswalks either, but let's look at the options.
Yeah,
Let's recognize
absolutely.
that our first obligation is the safety of the residents.
Absolutely.
But let's spend it wisely.
Yeah. No, I'm not taking it lightly, but I tell all the people in my building, when you go out at night, use a flashlight.
No. I was not suggesting we're taking it lightly. I'm saying
No, I know.
let's spend wisely, I was saying.
Yes,
you.
sir. Yeah. Please state your name, please, and your address.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Eric Johansson, and 2358 South Ocean Boulevard. A comment. Mayor, I think you made a comment that I appreciated. The flags seem to be working quite well during the day. I think that's been a tremendous positive development. I think crosswalks are important. I think crosswalks where they're located, it's to my knowledge, and I may be wrong, they're not public. They're not public. In other words, if you cross at the Coronado and go to their clubhouse, it's not open to all the residents of Highland Beach. And if you cross at Delray Sands, there's no access to the beach for our residents. There are many crosswalks here who it's limited use because they have a pass, a code to get through their gate to go to the beach. These are not public entrances. I do not feel we should embark our hard-earned money. Last year, our Highland Beach taxes, expenses went up and our taxes went up. There are better ways to spend our money. Now, the simple solution that the mayor alluded to, I don't think anyone could really object to. I think if you're going to cross A1A in the middle of the night, bring some protection. This is common sense, a flashlight or something. And we have no obligation as a town, I feel, to provide private property crosswalks. These are for the benefit of private citizens, not for the town. So I think I was surprised, I'm out falling through the floor at this point, that you could possibly even entertain the possibility of spending $500,000 to possibly $750,000 for a project that only provides services for a few residents who have the ability to cross A1A. I may just make one statement. I'm president of the Bird Beach Association, and we represent the private homes from the entrance of Highland Beach north to the Delray Sands on the intercoastal side. We have an easement which gives us all access to the beach. We do not have a crosswalk. If we wanted a crosswalk, we would pay for it as part of our civil obligation and value of our homes. The people at the Coronado should pay for their own crosswalk. Every other private crosswalk that benefits certain individuals should pay for it themselves. This is not something I believe the town should spend our money on. And I think that if it goes to a referendum, it will be defeated completely, not only with my resources, others that I will have on my side. This is not our jurisdiction. Thank you.
We appreciate everybody's comments.
Yeah,
And maybe
can
that's-
I respond
that's
a
an idea.
little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay. You can't create a crosswalk for a private company. It's through FDOT, and they won't let you do that, much like they won't let us add any more than 8 crosswalks in town. So they aren't private crosswalks. Anyone can use them. They just can't get to the beach, but people go across the street for reasons other than getting to the beach, because sometimes people come from the beach side to come across to the sidewalk to walk up and down on the sidewalk. It's not quite as simple as you might think.
Yes, Peggy has.
If I could just offer a bit of history. When I moved here, 2 of the current commissioners lived on my street, Mayor Arlen Voris and Vice Mayor John Rand, who's still with us. And I asked them a while back, why do we have crosswalks at certain places? Long before I was up here. The history is when the condos were built on the west side of A1A, in order to provide a clubhouse on the east side of A1A, FDOT required a crosswalk. FDOT paid, and it was permitted in that order. Otherwise, they would not be permitted to build by the town to build a clubhouse on the east side. And therefore, our 8 crosswalks, if you look, are at the locations of large condos, which is basically after a few fishing huts and homes were built in Highland Beach, it became a very prominent place to build higher-rise condos. If you look at Delray and Boca, they were not permitted at that time, talking 50 years ago. So that's the history. It's not people's fault sitting up here or sitting out there, anywhere that they are where they are. And all crosswalks are under the jurisdiction, as Commissioner David said, of FDOT. It is not our choice. So just thought I'd offer the history.
Right, John?
John Ross Casarina. The problem is definitely with the RFP, as Barry says. Not only are the line items stupidly out of whack with each other, but the distribution of the RFP guaranteed highest price. I was on the phone with Michigan yesterday, the home of our town manager, where it was 9 degrees and there is nobody digging up the streets. And there are awful qualified companies which aren't going to do any work till it gets warm. Similarly, the RFP for the command and control system for the water plant was also distributed because these are companies with local reputations. Every day I write code, that code goes to Virginia. There are plenty of firms in Virginia. They hired me to write the code. I sat down at a computer and wrote it in my house, and off it went to Virginia. As I was writing, I was logged into their machines. The wider an RFP is distributed, the better it is. There should also be a bottom line on an RFP. if we ask, it's good to be able to argue with vendors about why is this so expensive and not this, and often it's because they read the thing differently. But it's awful good if they bid a fixed price, or time and materials with a cap, and to state all of those numbers. Those tend to drive the cost of the price of the responses down, right? I hated time and materials with a cap because the client, in this case Highland Beach, always had the advantage on that. Okay. So I think that a wider distribution and looking at some of those clauses and seeing if they read the same, and it's perfectly legitimate to go back to the vendors and say, what did you mean this, what do you think we meant this to say? And getting an answer, that's a perfectly legitimate tactic that many governments use every day of the week. Thanks.
Okay, at this time, unless the commission has anything else to say, anyone else have anything to say? I would like to table this for the new commission, and good luck. But I still say, I wonder if you can make those flags that at night they would light up, not light up, but be luminous. That's an idea. That's not a bad idea. Reflective, yeah, maybe some reflective strips on them.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Could I suggest in the next manager's minute and maybe a regular mailing that we remind residents to wear light colors and bring a light when they go out? It's just such a simple thing for a quick, immediate fix.
Yeah.
Can you just maybe address a few safety factors such as that?
I would be glad to put in some
Just
safety
to send it out
But
to
that-
say that
yeah,
we've tried
yeah.
to and remind people. There's a lot of people, including the chefs at Delray Sands, wearing black and crossing at 11 at night.
Yeah.
Please, that would
Yeah,
help.
the strips though on the flags, because I know John's community, I see people all the time, they're so happy holding the flags. Put on the reflective strips on the orange flags. Yeah, at night. It's at night, the issue. That's a good idea. Thank you, Greg.
And
That was-
bike lights, if I could add in, bike lights.
Yeah, so
bicycle
we're going to
lights.
table this for the next commission. Okay, now we're going to continue legislative action days update. I see it's though from February when I was reading it, all these things. So, and everything moves so fast in this country. It's now March. So are there any changes from some of the things that you,
No, a couple things. I'll keep
Okay,
it
good.
brief because the
Yes.
literature basically covers it, but
please?
so I was at 5 days in Tallahassee at no cost for accommodations. As I stated earlier, our two proposed bills are past their subcommittees. They've been budgeted. We'll see. We're hoping and praying they make it all the way through to the governor's pen. Additionally to that, we had an ethics meeting, which is required of public servants every year, which was interesting and very updated. That was half a day. The next day, we being commissioners from, I think, 53 different municipalities banded together, broke up, and went out to our representatives by county or by district, meeting with them. And the areas of concern, which was very well organized by Florida League of Cities, I have to say they did an amazing job on this. They broke down the main concerns of municipalities, most of which are our concerns, the key being the short-term rentals. The Airbnb and the other short-term rental companies have employed 145 lobbyists. And usually a company will employ maybe 5 to 20 if it's a big deal, 2 or 3 if it's not a big deal throughout the state, but 145 may be a record. Our groups went around talking to each person about these items. The next one was natural resources, which of course involves all of our water grant. There is money for water projects out there, which we could talk about later. Springs restoration, not pertinent to our town. Next, we talked about the private property, the Byrd-Harris Act. Certain legislators were trying to expand this, which would allow basically a local government to negotiate with property owners who are filing claims, and if the property owner, if Tim Burnich loses his case in a court, say, using Tim as an example, he would have to pay his court costs and the opponent's court costs. This is looking to be struck down at this point. Affordable housing, sales tax fairness, impact fees, sovereign immunity, and another major topic pertaining to us potentially would be home-based businesses. There's a movement in our state to do away with zoning ordinances whereby you could build any factory business or any profit-making venture in a town on residential property. We could take the empty lots in Highland Beach, the few remaining, and put a tannery or a brewery. Maybe a brewery wouldn't be so bad, but yeah, we'll take the brewery. So this wasn't really met with with any happiness by other legislators. Both that and the short-term rentals seem to be on the way out, partly due to Florida League of Cities, but last week Governor DeSantis did state that he was not in favor of allowing the state to completely run and manage short-term rentals. So that looks to be hopefully on the way out. There is a rewrite and an amendment to the bill by Senator Simpson, which is saying keep the portion at the local level that actually does the code and zoning ordinances, and let the state just oversee for collection of taxes, working with each county. So those were big issues. And I have to say, it's interesting when I do attend these meetings that the local representatives, the council and the commission people, really, I have to say their hearts are in the right place. They work very hard for their communities, and they are extremely dedicated and vigilant, and I'm impressed by all over the state, from the Panhandle to Key West. They're very good people. The next day we attended session. We attended session the next 2.5 days. It's very interesting to sit in there and listen to the senators and the representatives wrangle their bills. It's very eye-opening. Nothing major to report there. The next 2 weeks, the budget process will be honed down, and we will have decisions on our bills and the rest of them in the next 2 weeks. If you're interested in any more, Marshall Labadie has a copy of my complete packet. If you're interested in any more of the comments. And other than that, I do thank the League because they did a great job. And thank you for sending me.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any additional comments from the commission to Peggy? Anyone like to say anything?
I would just, express thanks for undertaking that at personal expense and personal time. Do appreciate it. This just spells out the importance of Highland Beach thinking outside of the boundaries of our town. There's a lot going on out there that can benefit us and that could hurt us. So our continuing vibrant participation in the Florida League of Cities is extremely important going forward. Thank you, Becky.
Great. Okay, very good. We'll move on. Public comments and requests, agenda items only. Yes, Tim.
Tim Burnich again from 4505 South Ocean. As chairman of the Code Enforcement Board, I'm happy that the commission has appointed Mr. Leinson and Mr. Perlman. They're two excellent people that will be beneficial to our Code Enforcement Board. Now we have a full complement. We're ready to hear some cases. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Well, I think Larry had his hand up.
Hello. Larry Wittenberg, Regency Highland. That's where you're at, right?
That's me. That's my building.
Okay. This is regarding the ordinance, the resolution 20-005, anti-Semitism. I want to, my wife would be here today, but she's ill, so I'm here on her behalf as well as my behalf. I want to thank the Goldsteins for coming forward, thanking the commission for passing this resolution today. And I want to let the people know that Highland Beach will not accept any hateful behavior regarding anti-Semitism in this matter. Okay. And thank you guys for everything.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it very, very much.
Well, we appreciate hearing from you. Thank you very much. Yes, Katerina.
Katharina Braun, Villa Magna. I am hoping that the town manager is telling us a little bit in his report about the dredging in Highland Beach, because it is this time very different, because I see it many times, because they are taking the sand from Highland Beach, bringing it to Delray Beach, and then it comes back to us. So is that the new cycle? So I was getting to you when you say, oh, we should think and look outside of the box. So that's my box. I'm looking at it since 10 days, and they are working day and night and Sundays and weekends. Did we know that? Are we informed? Are we involved? Just a simple question. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Yes. Thank you, Dr. Greenwald. I always like to hear from you. I'll have to meet you when I'm not the mayor anymore. We'll have coffee.
Notice I'm only taking 3 minutes for this instead of 5 minutes. I typically take 5 minutes to say constructively, I hope, but critical things. And I'm only going to take 3 minutes this time, because what I want to do is thank you all on the commission for your service. Since this is, I think, the last meeting as this.
One more meeting. I
One
have
more
to
meeting?
turn over the gavel.
Right, but, so, obviously, you guys have a very hard and thankless kind of a job, and I'm hopeful that I speak for most people here that we appreciate the amount of time and effort that you have to put in. It's not only these meetings, but all the other meetings you attend, whether it's advisory board, particularly some of you, in particular Peggy and Barry have attended a lot of meetings to try and get information for us from other areas in the state, which I think have been helpful. It's very easy for us in the audience to be critical. It's always much easier to tear things down than it is to build things up. And you have to suffer a lot of slings and arrows in your positions, even when you're doing the best that you possibly can. So we really appreciate it. I think that from a governance standpoint, there's been a lot of progress that I've seen in the last year and a half or so. You've made some good decisions, I think. I think it's increasingly being recognized that we do have a town manager form of government, and that the commission needs to cede a lot of the authority to the town manager. And I think you've made probably one of the most important decisions that you have to do, in addition to the strategic planning role that you have and the fiduciary oversight and other critical oversight, not micromanagement, but critical oversight that you have to do. You went out and found us an excellent town manager, and I think that that's really important for the future of the community too. So with all that, I just want to thank you all for your service. I know that sometimes that gets lost in the heat of discussions and so on, but thank you for your service. Rhoda, thank you for doing your best to include everybody in the discussions. I think that's been good. I think the efforts to try and increase the role of the advisory boards has been good. And I appreciate all the hard work, time, and effort that you all put in. Thank you.
That's very nice of you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Okay, we'll continue. And we're going to go to town commission reports. And we'll go to Commissioner Evelyn David.
It's not really a report, it's a request. I know that there are other towns that are looking into trying to not limit 5G, but you can put certain kinds of restrictions on them, but you really have to have that in place before they come. So this is something for down the road, but we need to think about how we can limit it so that they're not eyesores all over our community. And perhaps, town manager, you can reach out to some other towns and see what they're proposing to do and whether or not we would benefit from doing something similar.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yes. This month I did attend the planning board meeting. I was interested in the comments on the vacant lots with docks topic and got a nice background on what they were thinking on that. Something that'll be taken up by the commission in the near future, I'm sure. Also had a chance to attend the District 4 luncheon. I'm going to miss those. It was great interacting with other commissioners and mayors in our surrounding towns, hearing what they're up against and knowing we're not alone. So did attend that. Today is my last working meeting on the town commission. When I was appointed to fill the vacancy, I was only half joking when I said someone needs to call my wife. I knew accepting this position meant Marlon was going to need to take up the slack on the home front, and she did. We spent weeks alone in New Jersey over the summer. She entertaining family and friends during my absences while working on the budget and attending to tasks I ordinarily addressed, while she continued with her own volunteer work with Friends of the Library. But she went even further, working alongside me, providing guidance, counsel, and support as we tried to elevate the response of the community to address pressing infrastructure needs and community appearance. So for that and so much more, I love her and I thank her. And she's with her girlfriends playing cribbage today. Much deserved, and I'm sure she's enjoying it. My father inspired me to public service. He ran twice for the state legislature in Kentucky and lost twice. And I have kept our family record of never being elected to public office intact.
And who'd you lose to? Me!
Due to circumstances and timing, I had the privilege of serving on your town commission for a little over a year. During this time, this commission's gotten a lot done. And for that, I thank my fellow commissioners and Mayor Zelniker. Thank you. Of all the things we have worked together to accomplish over the last year, I think the one thing that I leave feeling the best about is the cooperative attitude that we've adopted to work together in a good civil manner on behalf of the citizens of Highland Beach, and agree to disagree only in a civil and thoughtful way with respect for the opinions of one another. I'm very confident that cooperative spirit will continue with the incoming commission members and that we've seen the last of the culture of contempt that was so pervasive for so long. This job was made easier by the work of former Vice Mayor Neela, who worked diligently during her time on the commission to increase the professionalism of the town, resulting in Marshall Lamberty coming to our small community. It has been a pleasure working with Marshall and his assistant, Teresa. They've elevated our standards for good governance, management, maintenance, planning, and communications beyond expectations. Lynelda Gaskins is the shepherd to our flock of commissioners and has always offered me good direction in carrying out the duties of the office, for which I'm very thankful. Beverly and Janelle have been spot on in answering my inquiries, and it's always a pleasure to see their smiling faces. Chief Hardman, Patrick, Lois, Matt, and all the others who work diligently in our departments to make Highland Beach a great place to live have been very helpful and informative, always keeping their eye on how to make things better for all of us and the town of Highland Beach. Marlon asked me the other day how I feel about leaving the town commission, and I said I will miss it, and I truly will. But I leave happy and satisfied that our future is in good hands going forward, and look forward to be of service of another role at the pleasure of the town commission. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And you know, even though we ran against each other, we were always civil. And when it came to a time to appoint somebody, you were appointed. So you know we always appreciated your good work. And Commissioner Peggy Gassett-Seidman.
No report, thank you.
And my vice mayor.
No report.
No,
Nothing
who's
to
going to
say.
take care of you when I'm not here? But you have to bring him. He needs this. Well, I've been mentoring him for a few years. So I'm not going to give my goodbye speech. I'll do it at that meeting. But I am very happy with the new group coming in. There's no doubt about it. They were a little bit handpicked. And we have younger people on this commission, which is wonderful. But I'll give my final words on March 24th, and I look forward to that day. Okay, and now we're going to continue with Town Attorney Tresivia. First of all, I want to thank you for the resolution. I understand Pam wrote it?
She did.
Yeah, why don't you give her a little covet, ma'am?
It's been a pleasure working with both Mayor and with Commissioner Donaldson. I'm going to miss both of you. As you say, I think our new commissioners are going to do a great job, but it's been a real pleasure working with you. So thank you for your service.
Thanks. Okay, and now our esteemed town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a lot to say here. It looks like a lot of questions from the crowd, but before we get started, I want to take a quick moment to introduce Jeff Remus, our new building official. I'd like to call him forward quickly so everyone can put a name and a face of our building official. He's been with us for a while, started with CAP, and we were blessed to steal him. So, I want to say a few words and...
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I'd like to say hello to the commission, the mayor, vice mayor. And if anyone has any questions, you know where I'm at. You know how to get a hold of me. And I look forward to working with the town and keeping things moving in a positive and very forward direction for the good of the community, for the good of the public.
Well, we thank you very much for joining the group, and you're going to do just fine. We have wonderful residents that live here. Some of them can be a little cantankerous, but it's okay. You have to follow the rules, be tough with them. But our codes are most important, and we appreciate everything that you're going to be doing. Commissioner David, do you have any welcome words?
Welcome and good luck.
Barry?
Welcome aboard, Jeff. I was particularly glad to see your expertise and background in floodplain management, which is very important for our little coastal community.
Excellent.
I look forward to continuing development in the automation of the building department and picking up and reviewing on our codes and our code enforcement work. Appreciate it and glad to have you here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Me?
Sure.
Yes, thank you for staying with us. I know we've had 5 current and near future homes being built in my particular neighborhood, and I've heard nothing but great things about you and your service to those homeowners in the community. So we're thrilled you're staying with us. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice, Mayor Bob.
Commissioner Gottsabin insulted my comments. So I agree.
There's a lot of laughter in this room. I don't know, there must be something wrong today. Anyway, okay, now we go to our town manager's
Yep.
report.
So continuing on, I'll touch briefly because I've heard a little bit about the beach nourishment project that is ongoing in Delray Beach. While you see it from Highland Beach, that is not Highland Beach. Those are federal waters and federal lands that are beneath, for which the Army Corps of Engineers has identified through a lengthy process to identify the source, sand source that goes into it. I had the pleasure with commission support to go to a conference on beach nourishment and preservation with all of the engineers and all the modeling and tasks and programs that are available to do it and what that whole process is. It takes a great length of time, comes at quite a large cost. So they do a lot of modeling to see what the run-up is on certain storm events and waves and wave heights and resiliency and storm effects, and then they identify, the Army Corps has to identify, usually takes about 6 years to get an approval to do a beach nourishment project. And they identified that as a source. They could also take it from a borrow pit on 3 or 4 different locations, a little bit north central Florida. They can find some sands there if it meets the particle size things of that nature that they go through this whole dialysis or a diagnosis of different types of sand and size and grit factor and color. So that's identified. I know it's kind of an eyesore to see it. It is. I mean, it's kind of.
And it is different.
It's different. It's a big one. It's Great Lakes Dredging does it, and basically they go from Sarasota side. They just kind of spin back and forth across they're on the peninsula of Florida, just doing these beach projects. Is what I've come to find. They're the big player. Some of the good news is if we go back to our 2013 beach report, sediment transport, which I spent a lot of time boning up on. I hadn't heard that for a long time since college, and got a big dose of sediment transport. A lot of that stuff from Delray does wash down to us. So if you will, we get a little bit of a free lunch on that it does wash our way. And then occasionally we'll get a little bit from when Boca does Spanish River. A little bit will come north, not much, but most of our sand deposits does come from some Delray. So it's good that they're doing it, that we'll get our kind of a natural movement of sands back to our beachfront. But there's not much we can say. I hope it gets done early so you don't see it on your morning walks. And it's not a pleasant sight to see out in front.
And do we know when they did that the last time?
They do it like every 5 to 6 years is generally the general cycle.
The last one was not 5 or 6 years.
Ms. Braun, for the record, can you come to the podium so the public can see you on the television?
But going to your question, I'll have to get dates. I don't have it off the top of my head. I thought it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
It's different. It's not that long ago when they did it. I was just interested in knowing, are we involved in the process? Do we know what they're doing? Because this time it is very different.
All we did is we reached out to the contractor and just out of curiosity,
Okay.
Started saying, how about us? What would that cost us? And then he said, why would you do it? It's all going to wash down to Highland Beach anyway. They said you're in a better spot to just let it wash on its own. To get it to our beaches. I mean, if you remember from the study, there's a point in the middle, kind of that south portion by Ocean Place Villas, Mr. Paddock that may know him. That area seems to be a little more susceptible to the beach erosion. The other parts have been over the last 40 years, according to that study, holding firm. But I'll get you some more details on how often. I know they're going to do it again in 3 or 4 or 5 years. They're on a regular cycle with their public beach to replenish it. I guess I will jump back to the beginning. Commissioner Shoemaker or elect? We are, Pat and his team are going to put together some flushing guidelines and try to do a reach out to all of the community managers for the condos to say, in the summer you should consider flushing your water system. Here's a recommended sequence of events to do that. Maybe that might help start the conversation at the building level to get that regular maintenance routine to flush in the summertime. So I know that they're putting that together and we'll be distributing that. It might help a little bit to kind of keep those lines flushed as much as possible. I'll get out some safety tips on the crossing. I'll look into the 5G. We talked a little bit about the waste management fire. Again, I would just put a plug in here we do have a facility through the Solid Waste Authority to take household hazardous waste. And if that term sounds kind of odd, it's your chemicals, your paints, things that you hide in your garage and in your medicine cabinet. There's an alternative location for disposal. You could take it to that facility. I think it's on 6th Street, where you can take all of that. Because basically what started, there was an accelerant. Somebody threw away a can of something that started that fire. So again, it's good to keep that out of the waste stream. 1, for safety. 2 is that we can repurpose, recycle, fuel blend it for other purposes. So maybe we'll put that out too to the residents that there are some options for recycling that material out of the waste stream. You may have noticed we launched our new website, working through our final details. It looks really good. Kudos to Teresa, some heavy lifting to make that happen. We're working out the final kinks, but it's very effective at allowing you to use it on mobile devices, which it used to get locked up on. The screen wouldn't move. The thing that I want to point to, some of the discussions we had, is we have an alert center. While I won't go to jail for you, so we're not going to keep 2 separate lists, if that list isn't effective, we'll try to get as much communication that if you want to know something that's going on, it's incumbent upon us to put value-added and important content on our website in that alert center. So just go to the alert center, and it'll pop up. So if there's something new and happening that isn't to a point where it gets to a code red, we're going to try to feed that as much as possible and get that information as another source. The manager's minute will always be posted there too. So if you don't want to open the email from the town or you're not getting it, the website will become our hub of communication to get that information out. So that went well. Next meeting, we should be on our new MuniCode agenda software. Lynelda and her team kind of rolled that out. So we're kind of moving in a new program for agenda control and agenda management. So that's been a big project for Lynelda. Good work on that. So we're really catching up where the momentum is there. We're really starting to get ourselves up to date. The selection committee for the IT system will be meeting tomorrow. We spent a lot of time. We can't talk about it. I can't wait to talk to the selection committee about it because we're in a cone of silence. I can't talk about it. For me, that's sometimes difficult. But we'll be having that meeting tomorrow to see what options are available and how we want to move forward with that. Flushing guidelines, fire website. A couple kudos in the police department. Their recent technical audit, they passed well. So Lieutenant Jay Zesnit, Manager Eric Aronowitz, and Mark Rutledge, our IT consultant, did a really good job keeping our police department and our technical aspects of our operations, if you will, behind the wall type stuff that keeps all of our criminal justice systems moving. We passed with flying colors, and when challenged, our team presented responses that even baffled the auditor. So our system is top notch and totally secure, as we've discussed in the past. Officer Miller was into, which condo was it? Villa Costa, doing a security audit, helping them make sure their facility and their condo and access points are all secure. So any condos out there, if you need help or want a second set of eyes on how security is done, reach out to Chief Hartman and he'll get that in place for you. No charge. We'll come out and kind of walk you through your points of vulnerability, how to beef up security a little bit and move forward. Lastly, safe deposit box. We opened it. I'm glad it wasn't the cameras on, but so really it was a box of documents. Basically all of the original charter is in there, original set of ordinances that were passed. Kind of interesting, the water revenue bonds issued in 1956. So we have some historical documents that are in this box. So we'll try to do our best to, one, we will scan those into record, but we'll have to find a way to present them so the public can see them. They're pretty neat that they kept those records from the very beginning, and basically up to about 2000, it seems like they had all resolutions and certain actions kind of laid out, written, and signed. So at least we got some historical documents. There was no gold bullion or anything cool like that. So, you know, we have what's that? So, right. There's always one in the crowd. So all the documents are there for viewing. So we'll be sharing that with everybody once we get them duplicated and take a look at it. It was pretty neat. But that was what we've been paying all that money for, was to safe paper documents. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you very much for your report. I'm sorry, I have the end of a cold. There being no further business, I call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 3:27 p.m. And thank you all for being here. Thank you.